The Guardians got their most guards ball win of the season as the Dodgers head out of town. We are not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, but the Guardians will be forced to make some changes this weekend. What will those look like?
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in. It is not a Therapy Thursday edition of Locked On Guardians. It is a early weekend victory celebration edition of Locked On Guardians, where we cover your Cleveland Guardians every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, from the majors to the minors and everything in between. It's our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it is yours as well. And welcome on. Thanks for being here with us. I am Justin Latta. I have been watching Cleveland Guardians baseball my entire life. And I have been writing about their minor league system since 2007. You can find all of my minor league analysis at the News Herald, the Morning Journal, and Next Year in Cleveland on Substack. And of course, here every day of the week with my friend and co-host, Jeff Ellis.
I am said friend and co-host, Jeff Ellis. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. But before I get into that spiel, as you mentioned, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here since Locked On brought baseball into the fold, one of the OG podcasting hosts for them. 6 years later, before that, I was a national writer at Scout 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. If you want to go hear a salty fan, go listen to the Dodgers podcast and enjoy their tears, Locked On Dodgers. And I want to thank all of our everydayers. Make sure you comment below if you are one, especially if you're someone we haven't given a shout out yet. That way I know who you are. Give you that shout out. And I know you have a special shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Peter from the Captains. Was at the Captains game this past Friday, and I forgot to mention it earlier in the week, but Peter was we were walking by. He said he loved the show. He chatted for a few minutes. I was a little bit busy, but I'll hopefully catch up with Peter again next Captains homestand. But thanks for listening, Peter. We appreciate it, and we'll catch up again soon. On today's Locked On Guardians, of course, we will talk about, we said we've been previewing this all week. We'll talk about how the middle infield should be handled the rest of the year with the injury to Travis Bazzana. Juan Brito's out, and second base is becoming less of a exciting position for the Guardians and more of a thing they have to get through this year. So we'll talk about how that needs to play out this season. We'll talk about what roster moves might be necessary this coming weekend for the Guardians as more injury bug and other issues hit them heading into their weekend series. Thankfully, they have an off day today. But we'll start today's episode.
Oh no, not that injury.
It's the midgets. I'm telling you, I was fighting for my life Monday night. I really was. I've never seen it like that. It was brutal. The midgets did not help the Guardians win on Wednesday. They did that on their own with a little bit of guards ball. Very fitting. This might have been the most guards ball game I've ever seen from the Guardians, outside of, like, I don't know, some of the walk-offs they had in the playoffs. I guess the Yankees ones in the 2022 ALDS, and then there's been some other ones. But today was absolutely guards ball for a number of reasons, because, yeah, they banged out a lot of hits. Obviously, Angel Martinez came through with the big home run at the end there. But to get there, they had to come back from down 4-1. They obviously scored early in this one. But they came back, which, I think is a check mark. We'll have to go through and do a checklist of all the things that are encapsulated in guards ball. And I think a comeback win is one of them. Getting 15 hits on a lot of BABIP luck is definitely one of them. And I think letting Austin Hedges hit with the bases loaded twice and not coming through with anything and still winning counts as a guards ball win, because that defies logic. A lot of people were mad about that. Let's address that real quick. So I want to focus on the positives, but this is hilarious to me.
They did have an expected BABIP or expected batting average of 308. I'll just interrupt you real quickly. Say, like, it was guards ball, but they also just hit the ball well. And expected batting, that's one of the highest expected batting averages I've seen from them recently, is a 308.
Yeah.
So it's not, it was a complete game. It just, they kept having those moments where, like, for instance, you load the bases and you leave Austin Hedges out there with 2 outs, or you get a man twice. Well, the first time wasn't with 2 outs. Wasn't the second time because then, Martinez got the hit, right? Or no, Jones had the hit then. So
Jones had the hit, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, that first time,
1 out.
Yeah, it was with 2 outs. But you had a lot of innings where you had like 2 guys reach a base and no one do anything. So it was building and it exploded. But yeah, I agree. To me, was it the 7th inning? I can't remember. Whichever the first time it was, I'm like, just pinch hit him. Like I didn't understand that one at all. It was a 6th. Okay.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people were mad about that. Like originally, as we were watching the game without any knowledge of what's going on in the dugout, I'm thinking, okay, Kwan came out of this game and Lane Thomas can't play. We'll get into that in the second segment a little bit. So I was like, all right, the bench is kind of short. They're bringing in a lefty, or they're threatening to bring a lefty in because they had Bessie up at that point, or they had Tanner Scott up at that point, whatever. So I was like, all right, I get not going into anybody here because it's early and because your bench is kind of short right now and they're threatening with a lefty. So all they had was Manzardo and Bo Naylor. So I thought probably doesn't really matter, especially with the way Manzardo's been going through it lately. And honestly, Bo Naylor too, even though they moved him up to the second spot to try to spark something. So I understood it there. The eighth inning was a little weirder. And I still would have understood if Vote's post-game comments were like, well, we wanted to give Bo Naylor a full day off and lefty was on the mound and we had a short bench because of the injuries. I'd have been like, okay, I understand that. But then he went out and defended it and said, yeah, Bo Naylor was available and Austin's one of our best. Is a good hitter. We wanted Austin in there. That was. I mean, I guess that's defending your players a little bit.
It
but
is.
Like, and thankfully, it didn't really matter in the long run. But that's why I say it's like Sogard's ball. They tempted fate. They beat the Dodgers, and they did it without Kwan in the lineup later in the game, who did nothing. And in the eighth inning, they had like 2 or 3 hits that were like very low expected batting average. The Will Wilson hit, the John Kenzie-Noel hit that started it all. Like those were BABIP hits. Yeah. And then Austin Hedges struck out, thankfully, instead of grounding on double play. And then Angel Martinez came up. Yeah, so
that's the positive. Hedges too, by the way, it's like no matter what you want to say, we've talked about Manzardo's struggles, right? And we've talked about like everyone's struggles over the last 30 days. The only guys who have hit worse than Hedges are Thomas and Rocchio. And over the last 15, the only one who's hit worse is Thomas, who's been dealing with injuries, multiple injuries, a wrist and a foot issue. So like, there's no excuse. Let's be honest. That was a poor decision. If Bo Naylor was available, that is a poor. Bo Naylor in the last 15 days in the last 30 days, he has their 4th best OPS, higher than Kwan, and he's also 4th best in the last 15, higher than Kwan. If you don't trust Manzardo, then just go straight to Naylor. Like there's no reason for that. That was a bad call. Full stop.
It was. And the bullpen game ends up winning. So
Allard again.
Allard again. So full disclosure, like I get the game notes from the Clippers, and it was like 8 a.m. because the Clippers played 11 a.m. game on Wednesday for some reason. So they set up their game notes at 8 a.m. and it said Will Dion was pitching and Parker Messick was the originally scheduled starter. So I was like, all right, well, that looks like Parker Messick because they scratched him from his start. And then they went with Colby Allard. And Parker Messick still didn't pitch in Columbus. So I wonder if that was more of a precautionary thing just in case. And that might have been too because, if Slade Ciccone didn't come through his bullpen healthy, maybe Parker Messick slides into Ciccone's role, which we'll talk about in the second segment as well. But yeah, Colby Allard, this is another part of the guards ball thing too, because Colby Allard goes out and gives you a great start as a long man, as a spot starter. I mean, 2 runs in 4 innings is I guess constitutes as a great start for him when you're considered a bullpen game. But the bullpen after that was fantastic. Like I know Cade Smith allowed a run and
some
Walters did
again for him.
Yeah, and he threw more splitters in this one, which was good. But he gave up a couple hits, and Tim Herron did throw the wild pitch that allowed a run to score. So like bullpen wasn't like uncrackable, but hey, they did enough to hold the Dodgers to where they were at that point. And Festa was good, Clase was good.
Gavin and Tanner only went 5 innings. He went 4, only 5 hard hits. Like, I mean, he was their best starter this weekend or this series.
He really was, which is wild. Yeah, Colby Allard. I mean, I said this on my post game analysis short that the unlikely heroes have been stepping up for them, and it's when they win. And this one, unlikely heroes include Will Wilson, Angel Martinez, and Colby Allard and Matt Festa. Yeah, Nolan Jones, who, well, I wouldn't call him unlikely because you need him to be one of those guys, and he finally did with 3 hits, even if one of them was a little, bad-bippy luck. Nolan Jones, he might be sticking around a lot longer than some people like, because he has hit okay recently, especially in this one, but also because the Guardians are running out of options in the outfield.
They're no Ben Lively.
They are no Ben Lively out there for sure. We'll talk about that next on today's Lockdown Guardians.
You don't even need to see my face. Just focus on these wonderful pistachios. And the name is so appropriate. because they are delicious in my tummy. Look for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious. Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you. Saturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Talked about before, I have a massive sweet tooth. These are a better snack because it actually fills you up. You can sit there and eat candy for days, and it's not going to fill you up. When you eat Wonderful Pistachios, you're getting protein, which will help fill you up. It's also, just going through on the back of nutrients. Do you need more thiamine? How about B6? How about copper? Manganese? All those minerals you're getting from Wonderful Pistachios. So get snacking and get cracking. Not going to crack the bag with a snack that packs a protein punch. WonderfulPistachios.com to learn more.
Now that Jeff is done assaulting his snack item of choice,
I assaulted my salty snack.
You assaulted your salty snack. Yeah, well, hopefully Lane Thomas is hanging on to some pistachios because he's going to be riding the bench for a little bit while, looking for a good snack while he watches some baseball. He tried to hit in this one late in the game when Austin Hedges was coming up. He looked like he was trying to get into the game, and Stephen Vogt had to tell him, like, it's just not happening, man. Like, we appreciate your toughness, but it's just not happening, man. He is dealing with plantar fasciitis and got that checked out on Wednesday. I'm assuming we won't hear anything until Friday at this point with Lane Thomas. I think the good news of this is that if Lane Thomas has to miss time, because plantar fasciitis is not a minor injury, like it lingers and it's painful, and he's had it in the past. This is definitely an IL stint.
I've had it. It's not fun. I was trying to bring out the device that I've used. Like, hey Lane, get this. This is what helped me, but it's stuck, so I can't show off. But it's nasty. Like, it just hurts you to walk, and you just have to kind of like work through it. It's I don't know how you could play baseball on it. Like, it's hard to walk with it, let alone do a sport. Yeah,
I think Carlos Correa missed a lot of time with it when he was in Minnesota, and that's something that's bothering him for a few years. It's something that lingers. It's not good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something that's hard to play through. But I also don't know if it's something you can knock out with an IL. So like the wrist thing, they put him on the IL with the wrist thing because they felt like if he got the rest he needed, the swelling in the wrist would go down and he'd come back and not have to worry about it. I don't know if an IL stint's gonna take care of plantar fasciitis. Like, it's also one of those things that, like,
but it also can. It goes both ways.
Yeah, it depends on how severe of a case it is. So we'll find out Friday whether or not how severe it is. He got the testing done Wednesday and obviously was not available in the game. There is an off day Thursday, which is good, but I don't know. Again, the good news here is that Lane Thomas has given you nothing this year. Like, he's added nothing of value to this team.
Negative value, honestly.
One of my bold predictions this year was he was going to be one of their all-stars because I thought he was going to play out of his mind in his contract year. Well, he was looking like he's going to get a minor league deal at the end of the season, the way things are looking. So the question really is on Friday is who comes up. Like, Stephen Kwan exited this game after 2 innings because he had some right wrist inflammation, and they claim it was just precautionary. But the thing with the Guardians is when they say those things, originally the original assessment of Ben Lively was, well, we don't think he's going to need Tommy John. And then guess what? He's having Tommy John and flexor tendon surgery. So, and to be fair, Stephen Vogt or any of the coaches are not doctors. They wait until they get the proper medical opinions, and they're supposed to give their best assessment at the time of the question, or they just say, we'll have to wait till we find out more. But always, watch what they do, not what they say. So I'm not going to believe that Stephen Kwan is going to be fine. Like, maybe he will be fine, but I'm not going to believe it until he's playing on Friday and has 2 hits and looks fine. But I'm really curious to see if Lane Thomas hits the IL or if they need an out. They definitely should call up an outfielder Friday no matter what, because if there is any issue with Kwan's wrist and Lane Thomas can't play, whether they want Thomas to just rest or if they think an IL stint is necessary, they need an outfielder over the weekend, because Angel Martinez should be in center field for them every day. He should be hitting second every day. I know, you and I
numbers aren't as great as we make. He's had those high points, but he's definitely been streaky.
He has, but let's be honest, he's probably the best option in that spot, unless they want to go back to Jose hitting second, which I wouldn't touch that right now because hey, Jose's on a heater. In case you were wondering.
Personally, I would like Angel 1 and Kwan 2, and then Jose.
I don't like Angel 1 just because of the aggressiveness, but I guess if you're hitting him 2, what's the difference between him hitting 1? I would rather have Jose hit second, Santana third, and Manzardo fourth, but that's just me. It's a conversation for another day. But I think they got to bring up an outfielder this weekend regardless. A, to protect you from if Kwan does have any issues, and B, no matter what the situation is on Lane, again, whether he's sitting to try to rest or if he has to hit the IL, they need an outfielder. They need someone to be able to play because, again, Angel should be in center field or Jones should be in center field if that's the way they want to play it. And Angel plays second, you need a right fielder, and it shouldn't be Noel. So the question is, who is it? Who do you bring up? If I tend to believe that if they're going to bring anybody up, it's not going to be if it's Johnathan Rodriguez, it's short term, right? Because if it's a short term,
because he can handle the spots.
Yeah, I can
and he has
see
options. And he's actually, the numbers aren't too bad.
Well, again, if it's a long-term issue, then it's not going to be Rodriguez. If it's a short-term thing, maybe it's Rodriguez. Like okay, let's say that instead of ILing Thomas over the for the next 15 days or whatever it is, they want to sit him for the weekend. They have to bring up extra protection. I don't even know who goes down, by the way. If Thomas doesn't hit the IL, I don't know who you send down to make room. I guess it could be.
I don't think Wilson. You can. No, he's actually been their third best. I think they have to IL him. I don't think they have a choice. If they want to call someone up, they have to IL him.
Then to me, it shouldn't be Rodriguez. I know people have asked about Rodriguez. Look, the thing with Johnathan Rodriguez is this. Right hole has been a gaping issue all year. It's been terrible. And they decided to play CJ Kayfus in right field while Chase DeLauter was out. They moved Rodriguez to left or DH. That tells you, again, watch their actions, not their words. That tells you how they feel about Johnathan Rodriguez. Instead of Johnathan Rodriguez helping the right field black hole this season, he's been moved to left field and hasn't been called up. That tells you what they think about Rodriguez. I think Rodriguez, unfortunately, is a AAA MVP. That's just who he is. He's a 4A guy, and that's how the Guardians are treating him. I think you and I both believe that, too, because of his contact issues, his breaking pitch recognition issues, and his chase issues. And he's also, passive. It's just a very poor approach that doesn't work in the majors. I don't think it's going to be DeLauter. Like, if they IL Thomas, I don't think it's going to be DeLauter just yet.
Too soon. He hasn't had the innings.
He hasn't had the innings in the buildup. And, you make yourself a little more left-handed heavy because Thomas is a right-hander, so I don't know how they would deal with that. But the other issue is if it's Kayfus, he's not on the 40. And here's two things. A, you have to bring David Fry off the IL soon. Even if you don't call him up to the majors, he still has to be on the 40 here in the next 2 weeks. That's Ben Lively's spot. And again, I know we talked about Cody Bolton could be your roster fodder, but I don't know. I if it were me, I'd bring up Kayfus. I would IL Thomas and bring up Kayfus. I would.
I think it's going to be Petey Halpin. I got to be honest if they go with it. Just because he's already on the 40, they believed in him. He's having a solid year. He plays 3 outfield spots. You added him to your 40 man for a reason. And, Kayfus, it's been a smaller sample size in AAA. They typically don't knee jerk unless it's an absolute need. So my take on it is that, Fry, I believe June 9th is the last day he can be in the minors. So he's got to be up by June 9th if you backdate him.
Well, he's got to be on the 40. He doesn't have to be up. He just has to be on the 40.
Yes,
he could go to
options.
Yeah, he could go to AAA.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah. But so you're looking at that. But the thing with Kayfus is we've talked about in circles about the reasons why it's and the thing we didn't mention yesterday is you don't want to risk damaging a guy who has some areas that look like they could be exploited. You don't want to be a confidence downer. I think I got to be honest. I think it's Halpin, and I also think there's a world where Rocchio gets another shot sooner than later because Angel. Well, we'll talk about that in segment 3. Yeah,
there could be more of a need at second base there in the short term. I mean, you have Sheeman. It's funny, we were talking all offseason about how they needed a left-handed bat. The other thing is, I guess they could activate Will Brennan. Has he been on the IL long enough at this point?
I don't think he's had enough days. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I guess they could do Will Brennan if he has enough days. That could be their option there. I don't know. If it were me, if it's long term if Lane Thomas, they put it on the IL and they say, well, he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with plantar fasciitis. I would go ahead and bring up an actual option versus a bench guy who, like, to me, is Halpin. Halpin's a guy who's not going to start if you bring him up here. Not to mention he's also a left-handed hitter, and he's not really adding to your offense. And again, the good news is that Thomas hasn't given you anything offensively, so you're not losing much if he's out for a while. You're losing the potential, which stinks. But you haven't lost anything with him this year because he hasn't done anything this year. But Kayfus would represent an option for them to improve their offense, even though there are some exploitable things. But I would rather go with the higher ceiling. I mean, I guess DeLauter would be the higher ceiling, but I think I agree with you. Like, the build up there is probably still something that needs to be addressed for DeLauter.
Brendan can't come back till June 2nd. That would be 10 days. So just as a thing there. And I just think that plantar fasciitis is kind of one of those week-to-week things. So I don't think we'd see a 4 to 6 week. That's the other reason I wonder about a shorter term. It's definitely like a week-to-week thing.
If it's a shorter term, I could see, like I said, I could see it being Rodriguez. If it's shorter term, I guess I could see Halpin. The only thing is you just add another left-handed option in Halpin, and it's just, I don't know, that's kind of messy. I think you need a right-handed option, but not that matters because Rodriguez to me doesn't really add a whole lot of punch either, because I just don't think he could play in the majors, even though the AAA numbers are good, and he doesn't add defense either. So I guess we'll see on Friday, but either way, I think the Guardians are probably making a roster move if I had to guess on Friday there. Hopefully it won't be anything involving Stephen Kwan, because that's the guy where if something happened to him, things would get very ugly very fast, and that would be necessitating a bigger move. It doesn't seem like it'll be that big of a deal, but again, watch their actions and don't listen to their words. All right, we're going to talk about more words about the second base thing. Don't listen to my words, apparently. We're going to talk more about second base here in the final segment of today's Lockdown Guardians. Who should play second base the majority of the year this year with the Guardians having lots of injuries? Man, middle infield has become a mess again for the Guardians. We'll get into that next. Appreciate all of you making it this far in today's Locked On Guardians. We hope you're enjoying what you're hearing. And if you are, make sure you're hitting the bell on YouTube for reaction videos. Make sure you're looking for breaking news, post-game news, also all of our regular episodes, and MLB Squad Show, which will be coming your way today as well. You can get that in your Locked On feed on YouTube, and you can also get that in your audio feed as well on Spotify and Apple. So make sure you're auto-downloading over there. And, hey, consider becoming an insider with us, too. That's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians. All the moves that are happening for the Guardians right now, we are texting our insiders first about it. We're answering questions. We're doing mailbags, bonus content. We're talking to them every day about different things in the Guardians. So check that out as well if you like the show and you want to support it a little bit further. The Guardians, Jeff, I have to say, I shouldn't say they failed. I was going to say they failed to address the middle infield thing, because forever they collected all these middle infield prospects. There was
limited middle infield prospects is the problem. You should say that.
Yes,
they were very limited guys.
Yes, the approach really came back to bite them in the butt, didn't it? Like worse than a midge, because the midges don't bite. They're just annoying. But Rocchio, Bracho, Gabriel Rodriguez, the first one, not the one that's in the system now.
Yu Chang.
Gabriel Arias. I'm forgetting. Owen Miller was part of that group.
Yeah.
They collected so many middle infielders. Arias is up, and they collected and then they added Juan Brito, and he's hurt. Now the injury thing is different. Like, Juan Brito got hurt. You can't control that, and he's not like he was an injury prone player. It wasn't like a Chase DeLauter or a Daniel Espino thing. And then Travis Bazzana unfortunately got hurt. Again, not a guy who also has a long injury history either, if any at all. So you can't control those things. But so this whole idea of middle infield depth that they once had never existed. And they didn't even trade anybody either. That's the crazy thing, Jeff, is they never even used any of those prospects in a trade. Mostly because no other team wanted to match the value the Guardians placed on those guys. Like, the Guardians couldn't ever use them in a trade because the value didn't match up from what the Guardians held to them versus what other teams held to them, even though the Athletics are stupid and took dumb trades too. I mean, Brian Rocchio can't be any worse than Story Ruiz. They wanted ceiling.
And Rocchio had no 70 grade tools, and Ruiz had at least one 80 grade tool. Like, that was the problem. They had a bunch of guys who the best outcome was 50s across the board, and no one wants to trade for 50s across the board.
Yeah. So now the question becomes, and shortstop could be lumped into this too, because Gabby's played a good shortstop defensively. He's, he had a hit and a walk in this one, which is good. So, I mean, I don't think Gabby's going anywhere this year. I think at this point he is pretty much your shortstop until, unless things really crater for him. Like, they're not great, but they're okay. He's definitely hit a slump, but he was better in this one. So he's probably going to handle shortstop for the majority of the season. So it really does become a question of second base, even though you could, in theory, use an upgraded shortstop still. It's going to be a revolving door. Like Will Wilson is a punchless utility guy. I know he had a double in this one and 2 hits, but he's not a long-term major leaguer as much as everyone screamed about giving him a chance because of what he did in AAA. And that's, tells you everything you need to know about AAA and certain prospects. And you have Daniel Sheeman, who's around, who, again, is another guy who profiles best as a utility guy who plays a couple of different positions. And he's didn't you say he has like reverse platoon splits this year, which is really strange?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. So I don't know what to make of that either. And there's Angel Martinez, who also, does have some upside, most of that group anyway. I would continue to use Martinez in the majority of bats at second base. I know he might not be able to now because now if Lane Thomas is out, you might be putting Angel Martinez in center, which means Daniel Sheeman at second base and Will Wilson platooning. Are the Guardians going to have to trade for a second baseman? Because Travis Bazzana is not going to be an option in the majors this year at this point. Juan Brito, when he comes back, and pray to God he does soon, because he would be up right now if he was healthy, I think, which really sucks. He would have to be an option when he comes back, but he's got to come back and rehab and build up too. So I don't know. To me, it's either Juan Brito when he comes back and gets healthy. You just call as soon as he finishes rehab. You either call him up, or we might get to a situation where they have to look for help on a trade.
Yeah, just to comment back on Sheeman, for his career, it's reverse. This year he is hitting righties better than lefties, but for his career it was higher a year ago, and that was a bigger amount. I don't know. I don't think they're gonna have to make a trade, but this exact situation is why this whole offseason I was pushing for Ha-Seong Kim, and why I was like, we don't know if we have a shortstop. We don't know if we have a second baseman. Right now, they might have nothing. And Gabby is doing well enough at short. But yeah, I wasn't as sanguine as everyone else was on Rocchio. I was not sure that you could base a lot on a postseason when he had a really, really unproductive year. I think people kind of ignored the fact that all last year he didn't really do anything. He was I was talking about replacing him the whole season. I don't know what second basemen are going to be available. I think you're hoping for Brito. I honestly think the best answer at second base is the guy in center field. And, Angel, especially if Chase and Kayfus can keep it going, if they can build up their bats. I'm not saying when I say Chase DeLauter has played 2 weeks of baseball. He's got to build up. But if you're looking at a situation, this team doesn't care about your range in center field. Lane Thomas is not a rangy center fielder. Nolan Jones is not a rangy center fielder. They care about a strong arm, and Chase has that. I would not be shocked he was a center fielder in college. I don't think it's the best position. I know he doesn't play there hardly at all anymore. I think that's because more of the fear of injury. But they'll find ways. If Nolan Jones hits, which is a massive if, and maybe a pipe dream, but there's definitely a world. I'll use my sentence where it's they'll be fine with Nolan Jones in center field and Chase DeLauter in right and just have a strong arms everywhere, or Kayfus in right who doesn't have a strong arm, but still and then Angel at second. I think there's a world where Angel is your answer, but you don't jump to that right now. Schneeman's been good enough, right? You want to go Schneeman, you want to give Brito that opportunity, and then you go from there. But if you get down to it and it's still an issue at the deadline and you can get someone at a decent price who's productive, I would consider it. I wanted them to trade for IKF last year at shortstop because I just didn't think they had anything there. And, he went.
You can still do that. The Pirates are definitely selling.
Well, he went in like everyone, he went to Pittsburgh and went right in the hole.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Pirates are going to sell because I think that GM's got to try to do something to save his job.
Yeah.
And that'll be the other interesting thing. This deadline is GMs aplenty trying to save their job by squeezing a competition out.
Toronto, Baltimore. Yeah, they're all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a limited trade. Yeah, it's going to be a limited trade market, which incidentally we're going to get into, I think, soon here if we don't do it tomorrow. because we're going to talk about all the injuries in the Guardian system and how that has impacted their and performance, how that's impacted the guys they have available to trade should they need something. Yeah, I think right now you're right. The best case scenario is Juan Brito comes back sometime next month and does his rehab stint, and you call him up like right away. I don't think even you let him rehab and he plays a couple of games in Arizona, then he plays a couple of games in Columbus, and then you call him up. Like I think that's the best option because I don't know if, especially with Lane Thomas, the situation there being what it is, and it being week to week on a plantar fasciitis thing, and you might need on in center field. It's gonna. I think you have to give. I mean, I would have given Brito a chance even with Lane Thomas being healthy anyway, just because he was hitting and they needed help, and you can move Martinez around and you can move Schneemann around. I guess the question is at that point, who goes for him? I guess you could, at that point, you could probably send Will Wilson out because you'd have Schneemann and Martinez and Brito who could all cover infield spots, even though Brito is not really a good defender anywhere. But you really want him for the bat. So that's best case scenario, but that's still at least a month away for Brito. Like he's still at least a month away. So the next month for second base could be ugly, but it's been ugly all year. So I guess what's the difference? I guess I shouldn't say second base has been ugly because when Arias was playing second base, it was good. Now he's playing short. Second base is ugly and shortstop was ugly before. So
maybe they can make a trade with Toronto and have them eat like 85% of Jimenez's contract with him playing as poorly as he's played. Maybe that's the approach here.
Man, we didn't even get into that. At some point, we do have to revisit the offseason trades, talk about Josh Naylor, talk about Andres Gimenez, because right now Andres Gimenez is already getting the rough treatment over in Toronto. Yeah. He's hurt, and he's hurt physically, and he's getting hurt emotionally too, which is tough to see for Gimenez. Great guy, but it just is not working for him over there. And we'll get into that. All right, tomorrow's show, we're going to go around the farm. We'll talk about the Guardians farm system tomorrow. We'll talk about trade assets. We'll do some draft updates. There's been a lot of rankings dropped. There's been some drafts dropped, mock drafts dropped. We'll talk about all that. And then we'll talk about Guardians and Angels coming up over the weekend. So come back for Friday's episode of Locked On Guardians.
And until then, remember to rate and review, download daily, do your part, tell a friend, hit the bell. You know what to do. Do everything you can to help our show grow. And as I always say, if I can find the end tag, there we go. Sorry, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And go, Guardians, go.